to this panel discussion, which is on the theme building, designing, executing, and monetizing your CX strategy in an ROI world. True? Well, to lead us down the path, to make sure that we have light on this route, we are going to welcome our moderator and our panelists. We are welcoming somebody who is driven by the passion for quality of customer experience. At Qdegrees, he designs and implements business solutions leveraging people, process, and productivity tools that enable clients deliver best-in-class customer service. Please welcome Project Lead, Qdegrees Services, Mr. CB Rajesh, to moderate our panel discussion. Welcome, sir. Good afternoon. Up next, our first panelist is someone who has more than 25 years of experience and an established track record in sales, marketing, business development, and a lot more. We now welcome, with a loud round of applause, VP Corporate Strategy and Marketing, Praj Industries Limited. Please put your hands together for Dr. Ravindra Utgikar. A huge round of applause. Welcome, sir. Also joining our panelists right now is someone who has 16 plus years of research and analytics experience with a demonstrated history of working in complex matrix organizations. We welcome Director, Customer Analytics and Insights, Business Analytics, GE Healthcare. Put your hands together for Miss Charu Sharma. Inviting our panelists to join in as well, because you're visually right here and we'll feel the applause and hear it as well. We now welcome someone who drives digital transformation and industry leadership as the head of operations and CX at Asia's leading general insurance company. Please welcome President, Head Operations, Communities and Customer Service, Bajaj Allianz General Insurance Company Limited, on your screen right now, Mr. KV Dipu. Welcome, sir. Joining our panelists is someone with over 25 years of rich experience in banking and finance, manufacturing and service industry, now heads the retail operations at Axis Bank. You have it, EVP and Head Retail Operations and Service, Axis Bank Limited, Mr. Ratan Kesh. Welcome, sir. Thank you for joining us today. Up next, we have a result-oriented leader with over 17 plus years of experience in program management and marketing, whose expertise lies in formulating marketing strategy, Director, Customer Experience, Global, Lenovo. Please welcome Miss Anuradha Sathe. And our panel is now going to be complete when we welcome our next panelist, who with over 2 decades of experience in the UX industry has a proven track record of enabling UX-led business transformations for several Fortune 100 companies. You are going to welcome him with a loud round of applause. Please welcome VP and Global Head User Experience, Harman International, Mr. Mohan Krishnaraj.
Thank you.
We promised you the panel was going to be complete. It's looking good. We're going to hand over to our moderator to lead us into, well, getting the answers.
Yeah, thank you, Kesha. I mean, I would love to kind of start with the energy that she's left us with, and I'm sure most of us would want to emulate the energy that she's just passed on. So great. I'm super excited to be moderating this session. In fact, from the time when I was introduced to all the panel members, I personally wanted to ask a lot of questions, but you know, we have to stick to a theme. We have to stick to a topic that has been given to us. So I will try and do that. And we also have 10-minute short. So I will try and cut short on my introduction and start. I will straight delve into the points. Even before that, I thought, let me just do a context setting. And this is one of the most difficult topics I have ever moderated, because you are talking about business case. You are talking about converting smiles from cash. I mean, smiles to cash, right? I mean, everybody wants to know how much return on experience are you going to bring. We have grown up listening ROI, and now we will be talking about ROX, thanks to PwC coining this term in 2019. So thank you very much to all my co-panelists. I would first start with some data point and you know, just to set context. You know, we all know that almost 92% of the companies run some or other CX programs, and they are focused on customer experience. We also know that almost 73 to 75% of the customers say that customer experience matters to them when it comes to brand loyalties and how they will stick to a brand. So that's given. But the twist is, some time back, Forrester came out with a study which said 89% of the companies do not have a business case for the CX efforts that companies are putting in, and that's the area that we are going to explore. And the good news is 22% of Fortune 100 companies have a C-level customer officer. So that is going to be a big opportunity to a lot of CX professionals. So with that, I would straight away jump into exploring and understanding from each one of you on your thoughts and on your takes around how do we convert smile to cash. So I would want to start with Ratan, and the reason why I'm going to Ratan is, there were multiple documents and studies that I was reading about the scale of operations that you guys run. I mean, you are the third largest private bank in the country. You have close to 4,000 plus branches, 72,000 employees, service close to 2.6 to 3 million. This data may be dated, you can correct us, but that's the information I have. So it's massive, right? So when you go and implement something, with respect to customer experience, how do you really go to your management and say, this is the revenue upside, or this is the cost change that we are going to bring with respect to any of the initiative that you're going to do? I mean, we are very much interested in knowing how do you really manage this? The scales are huge.
Yeah, thanks, Rajesh. Very interesting sort of insight from you to an extent about the term that is coined by, you said PwC is coined the term. That very interesting. So what we do at our bank is we've got 4,500 branches and almost 40,000 people managing these branches, and then in addition to the 13,000 ATMs and lots of transactions that are happening on various channels. So one of the key parameters that we have seen is that we call it as a branch customer experience score. And what I did is that I actually looked at a data point of almost 1,216 branches, their customer experience score on one side, and their KPI ranking on one side. So I did a ranking of 1 to 1,216 branches on their CX ranking, and 1 to 1,216 branches on their KPI ranking on business parameter. And guess what? It is very surprising. It turned out that 78% of the branches, the ranking changes by plus minus 22 ranks, which effectively means if a branch is ranking, say 573 in CX ranking, it is ranking 593 or 95 in KPI ranking or thereabout, which is a phenomenal correlation, which means that you almost have a scenario wherein you can keep measuring only the CX, and then you can almost predict that the branch is expected to do better business. And therefore, that's a direct correlation. So when I go to management and say I need to invest on CX, I only have relation, and then they say, okay, don't worry, let's do about certain direct metrics. What we do is that we do poll every single customer using certain, of course, filters. The customers, as soon as they finish the transaction in a branch for financial or non-financial, or they would have done any other transaction in any channel, ATM, call center, etc., we poll that customer and in the form of an SMS and say, can you give me your feedback? How was the experience? And what you liked, what you didn't like? And the customers who give a rating on, let's say 9 and 10, who are promoters, we call up those customers to say thank you for really saying good about the bank. By the way, you seem to have multiple opportunities of availing more banking products from us, be it in the form of any other offers that we already have, maybe a mortgage loan or a credit card. And we are seeing all these customers are so obliged. Everybody needs banking, and we are actually seeing that they're happy to sort of show their obligation or show their gratefulness to the organization by passing on some more product. So the product holding ratio for the customers who are giving higher scores are significantly higher than the product holding ratio for the customers who are not giving good score. That again is another correlation. These are the few things that we go and discuss at a Mancom level and a strategy level for us to go and get convinced and of course get investment on CX.
Fantastic. So I think that's very interesting and very, very data driven. So probably we will come back and explore how you use it. And before that, let me move to Dr. Ravindra. First of all, sir, congratulations. I mean, your company has been rated second hottest bioeconomy company in 2021. So that's phenomenal, right? That's fantastic. And when I was looking up at your profile, I saw you working in biotech right now, and you have worked with companies around energy, manufacturing, digital. So you have a quite a lot of those new technology experience. So the question to you, and this is my personal question, but it also linked to the theme. I really want to know how do you really create a framework, which is around customer experience, employee experience, and then also communicate that specific value story. How do you really communicate, or reach to your audiences with stories of customer success? That's something that I'm interested in knowing, and I'm sure the audience.
Well, thank you. First of all, it's nice to be on this panel. Thanks to Harish for setting up this wonderful fest. Rajesh, you've been taking a lot of efforts in putting the whole thing together. Thanks for all this. The question that you posed has numerous facets, so it's like a crash course in customer experience. But let me see how I can put my perspectives across. So basically, my context is business to not consumer, but business to business or business to government. So I'm coming from a different angle in the first place. Now, we all know, I think there are numerous definitions of customer experience, but possibly the one that people find easy to comprehend is its sigma of numerous interactions we have with customers across the value chain, from concept to commissioning and care for life, based on how he feels, perceives our services, our delivery, our interactions, our responsiveness, and so on. So it's a sum total of that. Now, if you really, I think in your narrative, you started saying there has to be a business case. And I'm going to catch on that word, that in an ideal world, customer experience would be rolled out to every single client. And why not, right? But we have to be mindful that in real life, it's going to cost time. It's going to cost some resources, efforts, and clearly some earmarked budgets and so on. So how do we go about doing this? And I think the aviation or automobile industry has given us all these formulas by way of, having platinum, gold, silver kind of rating, depending on segmenting your customers as to who do you want to roll out the whole full-scale red carpet for your customer experience. And then the notch lower and so on. Now, for doing that segmentation, you clearly have to have a data analytics in place. Data analytics will throw you who are the most profitable customers, who are bringing the top line for your organization, who are repeat customers, who are strategically important customers, who are the ones who share your vision, help you introduce new products, and so on. So we got to figure out the life cycle worth of our customers. So you cannot look at a customer on a tactical basis and depending on which way the sun is rising, which is only east anyway, but you can't take actually a call that we will roll out CX for this and not for that. So actually that's how you go about segmenting it. Then the point you made about how do you prepare frameworks and convey the story. So the frameworks can vary. At a bottom end, typically organizations are now used to having what they call a CRM or customer relationship management function, which has been a kind of passe because it's more of a data acquisition and data management and so on, which undoubtedly is important. But companies have graduated to develop something called as a voice of customer champions or customer champions who are constantly identifying customers' needs for today and tomorrow and identifying his pain areas and problem areas and where we can provide solutions to help him. So there has to be a constantly voice of customer within within an organization and possibly within a department, because there is a internal customer concept also catching a lot in the industrial context where you have very complex operations. And then you are moving on the further value chain to what is called as a key account management. And there are various frameworks available in key account management where you are actually mirroring the customer's organization at the extreme side. On the another side, you are developing a multi-point, multi-functional, multi-hierarchical, and multi-locational interfaces so that the account is well and truly glued to your organization to create a superior customer experience. So we clearly are progressing from identifying what is customer experience, who are the people who we want to roll out a full-scale customer experience, what is the organization depending on the size and budgets you have, develop a framework to build around it, and then actually define the customer centricity as a single most important barrier, that he's the one who is paying for your salary. So I think every single interaction in customer journey, whether it is pre-sales, sales, or post-sales, is mapped. And in an ideal world, things will go wrong, and customer also understand that. It's your ability to identify what's going wrong and how do you fix them, whether it is on budgets, in timelines, in terms of responsibilities, root cause analysis, and so on. So I think the whole convey story part comes in 3 parts also, because if you look at it, you send in a B2B context, you spend a lot of time in pre-sales, also during delivering sales, but the maximum time is spent in life cycle management. So I think you need to have a seamless thread across the value chain, number one. Number two, identifying the things that worked, things that did not work, and what measures you took that fixed the things, and capturing customer feedback at every point in time. So I think that's how the whole story is built and then conveyed. So it's not only about what worked, also about what did not work and what efforts were taken and what course correction. So the lessons in what did not work were plowed back and course corrections were made. I think it's sort of a complex question, I guess. So it was
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. So let me straight away now, jump to Anuradha. And before I begin asking the question to Anuradha, in fact, there was an article that I was reading about Lenovo, and it said that 6 ways to create truly great customer service. And when I started reading those 6 points, the 3 things at the bottom, very, very, very fanciful, because it talked about celebrate customer wins. It spoke about let the customer voice be heard by the top. It spoke about invite the customer to visit you, and I found it very, very fascinating, because today in this digital world, we are not asking about inviting the customer to visit you. So it's very, very different. So I would really want to understand from you, how do you guys really determine and measure the best customer service metrics for your organization? So how do you really come across with these kind of points, and what goes behind this thought process?
Thank you, Rajesh, for the opportunity, first of all, and it's great to be part of the panel. I mean, I've got a lot more experienced people talking about customer experience. I'm pretty junior to them. Having said that, I like the fact that you've read that article and brought about these 3 points, because I think over the last 3 years, Lenovo as an organization has evolved itself in a big way when it comes to customer experience. And all the panelists will agree with me, with the COVID hitting us, we have found newer and better ways of responding and still keeping that thread of customer experience in everything that we do, which was extremely challenging, especially coming from a hardware industry where supply was an issue, manufacturing was an issue, demand was high because people are working from home. It has been a great challenge. But having said that, I think from an organization perspective, some of the things that we started doing here was, and I'll take it cue from what Ravindra spoke, is keeping a view of the entire customer journey. Customer service does not start when customer raises a ticket. Customer service starts way before, when we are even conceptualizing a product, right? So understanding that anything and everything that goes in an organization, whether it's a direct customer facing function or a support function, that is HR, finance, operations, Everything ultimately impacts a customer and an experience that gets delivered, right? So the one thing that we as an organization shifted was, rather than only limiting our measurements and keeping extreme focus on the customer facing functions, to actually creating a view across the customer touch points, right? Which started from the time, and it's not inside out, but it's outside in, from the time the customer thinks of purchasing a product and starts doing the research, to the point that a customer is coming back for service and upsell, cross-sell. So that one major shift that we did, and we tried to assess all the possible parameters that we could gather, across these touch points. Now, which again led to what are we measuring here? Because if you talk about NPS, which is a great measure, nothing wrong with it, but a lot of times the context is lost. When you only do NPS, the context is lost, right? So based on what touch point you are looking at, then we started looking at what kind of measurement we want. Are we looking at effectiveness? Okay. Are we looking at ease of engaging with us? Are we looking at overall satisfaction? Or are we looking at from a B2B context at the end of the year or middle of the year, talking to our decision maker and understanding overall as an engagement, how the experience has been, and whether or not this customer would like to be our promoter or detractor, and where is it that the big holes are. So that's another step that we took. Now, this led to the fact that each function, each team started having a CX KPI. And when you are having CX KPIs and you're measuring those CX KPIs every month on month, you go and celebrate your wins because you're able to touch your target. Now, target need not be something which is unachievable, right? Targets is making sure you're doing better than what you were last month. You're making sure you're doing better than what you were last year at this point. And it became very critical during COVID because it was so difficult. We all faced challenging times, right? We had backlashes from customers, but we also had customers going all out and talking the great support Lenovo could offer. I'll give you a couple of examples. I'm sorry, I'm taking 30 seconds extra here. But especially in the context of India, I would like to highlight, we had our own service agents who have actually gone in a flood hit area by a boat to deliver a laptop so that a student could write his exam on time. Now, this is way beyond anybody can expect. And this comes when each employee starts being sensitized, being sensitive about what kind of experience I'm delivering. And what is it at stake for my customer? Now, this customer is one for life because he knows no matter what, his requirements are important to us as a company. Or similarly, Lenovo India opened up their call center lines for all customers who had problems with any vendor laptop. If it was a software issue, we were helping them remote solve it. If it's a hardware issue, we were guiding them, go to HP, go to Dell, go to whoever the vendor is, right? Now, this is something taking a leadership, a thought leadership. It doesn't matter you've not bought my product. You are in need and I'm capable of solving it. So where am I coming from is not only understanding across touch points what is required, what needs to be measured, but also celebrating so that each employee starts, relating to the customer as the ultimate goal and get inspired to do more and better. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. It does very much. In fact, it has been insightful. I mean, those are the stories we are looking at. How do you really inspire the stories? How do you really, make the customer win? So great. Thank you for that, Anuradha. Let me just quickly go to Dipu. And I've been following Dipu for some time, and I read a lot that he writes in his LinkedIn and other post where he talks about how digitization happened, and then post digitization he want to humanize it. We keep hearing a lot of leaders talking about digitization. Here is a leader talking about digitization and then humanizing it. It's like training someone to be delivering what you want. So Dipu, what I want to tell you first is when the first time when I went to Bajaj Allianz General Insurance website and I saw 42,000 customer comments, and I did a math and I realized 95% of them are saying either 5-star or 4-star, and you had put everything up. And while I went to other players and I saw handpicked testimonials. So how do you really handle the unstructured data, and what's the value you create out of it, and what's the secret? That's what we would like to know from you.
Rajesh, firstly, I just wish to appreciate, the homework you have done. It's just amazing to see that, you've actually gone to the website of, each panelist's, firm, and then you have so much of data. It's incredible. This is real customer centricity. So firstly, thank you for your very kind words. And talking about humanizing the digital, I think what we realized during the last 1 year when digital servicing came to the fore is that while bots can be clinical and consistent, at the end of the day, human beings need a healing touch. When customers call up firms, they're typically not calling to compliment you, right? They're calling you because they have a problem. And we realize that we need care and empathy. So we're focusing on two things, Rajesh. One is how do we get our bots to mimic human interaction? So therefore, conversational AI, so that people start to feel much more familiar, and they just start to feel very natural. And the other is introducing a combination of man and machine, because you do find there are areas. For example, if you look at a chatbot, while it can answer a lot of queries, but in case the customer asks a query which the bot cannot answer, it just seamlessly shifts it to a human being. So the human being takes over and takes it through to completion. So what we want to do is to ensure that the customer does not have to break the transaction and then come in again, because studies show, to the point that Anu made about NPS, that if NPS is taken at the end of first time transaction, it can be as high as 96. But just go to second time resolution, as in break in the journey, it can fall to as low as 65. So that just tells you how much customers value resolution in one shot. Now coming to your specific queries around website and so much of traffic and comments and what is the secret sauce, so on and so forth. I think, Rajesh, while we do talk about digitization, I think at the end of it, we need to realize, as we have heard this cliche, that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So I think our first attempt has been to make sure that customer centricity is there in the heart and mind of every single individual. So we actually rebranded our own logo. Today our logo says "Caringly Yours," so which actually means that we want everyone to imbibe that culture. We keep reinforcing it. It's not just a buzzword, but every day when we see actions which reinforce this, we reward those people. And when we see actions which take us away from this, we give feedback to those people. So I think that lies at the heart of what we do. The other is it's very important today. It's a very simple but a very powerful point, that we need to go where the customer is. So for example, we realize that customers are very comfortable with WhatsApp. So we launched all our services on WhatsApp. So we basically want to go where the customer is, so whether it is websites, whether it is apps, whether it is, bots. For example, if you look at insurance, we have various forms of insurance, one of which is crop insurance. And crop insurance is typically taken by farmers for whom English is not the first language. So we launched an app exclusively in Indian languages. It was not there in English. So they could use that app to interact with us. They could use that app to interact with the government. And because rural markets are characterized by information asymmetry, we started to also give out information using the app. For example, information on the weather, because weather plays a key role in agriculture. We started to give crop advisories, and when COVID-19 hit them, it just became a lifeline for them. Sitting in the comfort of their home, in the language of their choice, they could use this app, interact with us, with the government, and with virtually any entity in the world. So much so that our downloads went up. Our rating on the Play Store was 4.6 at that point in time. And this was a unanimous choice for EFMA Accenture Global Innovation and Insurance Award. So I think this entire thing of putting customer first and living it, digitizing, and then humanizing it, I think that's been our secret sauce.
Now that's fantastic. So thank you so very much. I'm sure all of us, really gain from the insights so far. Now let me move on to Charu and probably ask her, because health has been on top of everybody's mind for last one year or so, and she's in the center of action, right? So Charu, my preamble to you is, a company like yours, GE, whatever you guys do makes news. So we keep reading on and off the kind of digital transformation, CX maturity initiatives, and other things that you do. So my question to you is, while we have CEOs focusing on many items or many elements, while they are making decision making, for them, they need to focus on shareholder value, revenue, and other things. So how does CX performance play a part in value creation for them? And how do you really connect CX KPIs to company vision? That's something that we would like to hear from you.
Sure. Thank you, Rajesh, and thank you for this question. Very true. We have been at the heart of all the action that's been happening globally. And like Anu, we've had some fantastic stories of some of our service people, some of our people right at the helm, where they've gone to really remote places to make sure that the machines are up and running, right? You needed all kinds of equipments. You needed monitoring, you needed ventilator support, you needed X-ray support, ultrasound sound machines. So they have been at the heart of everything that has been going on. And I think that all of that has been possible because of the whole culture around customer being embedded as the center. And GE Healthcare does, GE across takes it very seriously. A heart of lot of this lies in the fact that we are very focused on lean as a process, right? And we're very focused on continuous improvements that we need to do. And one big part of continuous improvements is keeping your customer at the center, right? So it's just not doing customer experience for the sake of it, but also because we are in the industry where we have to put customer first. We have to put patient at the center, even the customer of the customer. We're basically in a B2B business, but end of the day, they are treating patients like you and me, right? And our family members. So we can't lose sight of that. So I think the whole human part of it makes it more easier for us to connect to the customer and understand their pain points and design solutions which would work mostly for them, right? On coming to how do we really link our CX metrics, to our strategic initiatives, I think a big part of that is, the fact that your senior leadership has to acknowledge the fact this customer experience is one of the 4 key priorities that we have time and again that GE Healthcare has put at the center. And we do all of that, but more sure that the entire experience is good.
You have something called Harman experience, and you have created experience centers for connected world. It's unique, it's niche, and you're talking about connecting a whole lot of stuff that will take us from one place to another. So Mohan, how important from your perspective is to align CX strategy to organizational vision mission? I know I'm talking about Harman strategy, Harman experience. So how do you really link it and at a vision mission level? That's what I would like to hear from you.
Sure, thanks, Rajesh. I think great insights from everybody. See, customer experience should be the pivotal point for any strategy or the mission vision. Today, I would say a simple example of in 1953 there was Fortune 500 companies, and if you look at all of those companies today, not more than 15 to 18% remain. What happened to the rest of them? Not because they went out of business because of any other thing, because they were at one point in time, they were doing the best they could. Like Kodak or any of those are all great example case studies that we can look at that how they went out of business, because focusing on customer experience is very important. And if you look at the 18% that remained out of those Fortune 500, even today, have only been advancing themselves in what is the best experience I can deliver to the consumer, and looking at the pain points, not just about, see, every consumer has their own behavioral patterns. And how do we understand those is by either look at the individualistic way of behavior, like how individuals behave, or look at the holistic of larger audience of how larger audience behave. But overall, as a company, we need to define those goals clearly of how are we measuring those experiences. What are the questions that comes to the mind of users? I mean, typically, whenever you ask a user, you have to give them an opinion. You have to give them an open mind to have, it's a double diamond shape. You have to let them open up whatever you want, and then you converse them back to the point to your product and service. And then again, you expand to what you want to give them or offer to the requirements they have, and then converse to actually what we can both meet together, like the product service or the consumer together. So to look at those, I think what type of actions people do and what type of motivations they have to do certain things. Why should they even understand what are you selling me, or what are you trying to give me as an experience? And most importantly, we need to understand the barriers. As long as we have a clear measurement in our goals as barriers, I mean, I just want to throw one example, which is Zappos. So they kind of made their product, which is very interesting, by designing a beautiful, very well thought return page. So if you're able to have a proper return page, so they could increase the business by just having the return page well made. So people were comfortable, they could return, and people were the non-users became users because they're comfortable, they don't have to go around too much, they know exactly returning is easy. So that mindset became a big pivotal point to drive the experience for their product. So they kind of looked through all of these, what action, what motivation, what are the questions. So they also thought there is only one job to be done. There is a great framework of jobs to be done by Clayton Christensen from Harvard. So there is only one job to be done at any given point in time. As long as the product or the services can focus on their vision and mission of that one job to be done. If you're buying a drilling machine, you're just buying just to make a hole. So we can enhance it with so many different features with robotics and have speakers into it and make a lot of things to it. But end of the day, the person is buying only because he just wants to drill a hole. So how easy can we make that? Can it be wireless? Can it be charged? That is how we should look at it from a delivering an experience, because nobody wants to deliver a bad experience. That's 100%. Everybody wants to do the best. But where they fail is only when you define the goal of what am I trying to deliver? What is that one job to be done that I should be clearly focusing on? Because we get deviated requirement documents. You talk to 10 users, they will give you 10 different dimensions on it.
Absolutely. So thank you for that, and that's very interesting. So I know we have a short time, but let me before I let go, Anu, I would like to squeeze in one question, so I'm not going to talk about anything related to what you guys are doing, but what I really want to understand from you, Anu, how do you bridge the gap of CX across the organization? How do you really do that? And I'm sorry, I'm kind of insisting on getting this out from you, but if you could kind of.
You're asking me $1 million question. I think everybody struggles with that. Yes. All right. Thank you so much. So I think all companies have struggled with that and continue to evolve around. But in my understanding and experiences that I have had, whether it's a current organization or a past organization, I think one thing that did start moving the wheels, so to say, is again creating transparency. When we start bringing CX results in hands of every employee, and when we start looking at every function, every team, how they are being scored, what kind of customer comments are coming in, what are the key themes we are talking about, what is the sentiment that it is generating, people start becoming more and more conscious about it. Maybe in the beginning, because change management is very difficult. It doesn't come intuitively. It's not easy. So you start with, rewarding, probably having a stick, whatever works. But maybe if it is also tied up with some amount of incentive, people are far more conscious and far more driven to know what is going on. So that's step number one. Step number two, as I told you earlier also, No function in an organization can function and deliver in isolation. There are dependencies, right? Whether it's directly impacting anything that you do with a customer, or even for me to go to an office, I'm dependent on my facility management to be there, which seemingly has nothing to do with the kind of job I do, right? So having said that, the minute you bring that transparency, the minute you start showing how they're performing, the minute you start showing what customers are saying and what's happening, internal, external, both, teams and functions are compelled to work together, because they realize that for me to perform better, for me to have a better service score, I am dependent on my spare part of availability, which is dependent on supply chain, which then goes into manufacturing, which then goes into planning, right? They are forced to work together. They are forced to start looking at data together. It starts with data. It starts with knowing what questions to ask. It starts with collating the data, cleaning the data, and bringing those results which matter the most, and then highlighting those which matters the most to the customer, not necessarily only to the organizations. You start doing a backward accounting, and that forces teams which are seemingly not talking to each other to actually sit together and talk. This is the only way you can bridge gaps. Gaps can be bridged when only there is a conversation, when there's a communication, when there's a shared goal, when there's a shared reason to know that you're dependent for your success on somebody else, right? Once that is driven, you start slowly, the wheel starts moving, and people start talking and understanding the gaps and working on those gaps together.
Super. So yeah, thank you. I mean, this is exactly what I was trying to probe even in the first question, and I think we got it on the second round. So thank you so very much, Anuradha, for that. Now let me quickly move to Ratan, and I mentioned that I'll come back to you on analytics because recently I don't know about the time frame, but sometime back you had implemented a digital relationship management, and you started managing customer relationship from the back end. So and since in your first answer you also mentioned about data analytics, what I'm interested to know from you, Ratan, is customer experience management in the age of big data analytics. How do you execute this? I mean, you mentioned a methodology last time. How do you, at a finer level, how do you really do it?
Big data, I mean, banking is all about sort of immense amount of data. I mean, we collect everything about a customer in many sense. We are compelled to collect the data because we have a need to profile a customer for regulatory reasons, but it also helps us in doing lots of analytics. So I'll give you two dimensions of data, one for business and another for service landscape. So we collect data from the customers about your current location. Let's assume that you are in Mumbai, say in Phoenix Mall, and you happen to carry my Axis Bank credit card. So we have a capability to track that you are in Phoenix Mall during lunchtime, and we have a Chinese restaurant. We also know you prefer Chinese food. We actually can pump in an offer and say, hey, Rajesh, in so-and-so Chinese restaurant, you got 50% discount in the Axis Bank credit card. So that's a level of analytics that you can go to. And therefore, since it is so instant for you, and you actually prefer Chinese, you are looking for a place to go and have your lunch, you can actually use it, or Insta offer that you can make. The second is we know the context of a particular customer. Let's assume you have inquired about in any of my website about something relating to any particular product, or let's say a Forex card. The moment to look for a Forex card, I know for sure that you are traveling overseas. You may have an instant need for a person, or you may actually need a Forex cash. So how do you connect all of these dots and go back to the customer and make certain offers which are relevant for the customer because you need it at that point? So that's what one of the things that we do. On the service landscape, it's fairly complex, yet it's quite rewarding. So we are collecting data for the customer, every footprint. So whether you have gone something and said something in the social media about Axis Bank, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, you have gone into a branch and tried doing a transaction, that leaves a footprint in my CRM, or you have called up a call center, which leaves a footprint in my call center, or you would have sent an email to somebody in the support at axisbank.com. All of these instances, informations are actually brought together in a service data lake. And we actually do every interaction, we do rating. So we actually have capability to say the sentiments card for a customer's every single transaction. So if you come and have a call center call today for, let's say, balance inquiry or to check what are the charges levied, I would have a call center executive knowing that you called up 1 week back and that call was a good sentiment call, it's a green one. 1 month back, you called for something related to credit card, it was a red sentiment. And therefore, I know how to handle it at that moment. Not only that I know how to handle it, it is quite possible that through a proactive governance, I would probably know that you tried doing a transaction, it failed, and that will pop up to the agent, because we believe that a customer is calling call center not for any fun. Customer is calling call center is because of a problem. So our ability to proactively identify why the customer may be calling, it really helps. Now, are we there? Definitely not. We have a long way to go. We are really building some of these capabilities to service the customers well. What other things that we are doing in the analytics, and that's something which could be relevant for the audience, is that on the real time, when a customer is having a conversation with an agent, we do what we call it as a real-time speech analytics. So the speech is converted into a text. The text will have certain words and the sentiments. The customer is saying disgusting, disappointing, irritating, we pick those words. Or if the customer is saying, wow, wonderful, great, happy, etc., we pick those words. So you do a real-time speech analytics and then pop up the agent and say, hey, the call is not going right. Why don't you use this FAQ or the knowledge portal? Or if the call is going terribly bad, we actually pass it on straight to the SME queue who will handle it better. If the call has gone on well and the customer, before closing the call, we know that the customer is delighted because the call has gone well, the bot will pop up a product offer and say, this call was great. Customer seems to be willing to listen to for another 30 seconds. Why don't you try selling the product? So it has got dimension of both sales and service orientation. That's how we use analytics on the sales and the service domain. Rajesh.
Superb. I think it's quite inspiring the way you guys are managing the habits and emotions of customers. So I think that there are a lot of learning. So I would now want to jump to Dr. Ravindra. One of the difficult questions that a lot of time we keep hearing, how do you go to a performing organization? Now, your organization like yours is a performing organization, and then create a case for change. How do you really do that? And when it comes to CX, what are your quick thoughts on that?
So basically, every organization has a growth plan, right? And customer experience has been identified as a growth lever. So, can you deliver a superior experience to your A category customers and ensure that you have a higher, not just higher share of value, but also higher share of their emotional quotient? So I think for any issue they may have on operation side or any plans that they make for their strategic growth plans, if you have a stronger customer connect, you are able to help them solve their problem. So your game, and particularly coming from B2B side and also on the project organization, your game is to let your customer win his game. So I think, just being proactive about it is a strong case to build. Now, as we spoke, it cannot be built across the organization for every customer. So you make a case study and you make a success story of that case study and then put a kind of a benchmark for the other departments to follow. So, you have a pattern. Now, obviously, there will be contextual changes, circumstantial changes, delivery changes that may be needed. But as an organization, you have demonstrated that you have it in you to create a wow experience to your customers, who has not only just remained a customer, but has now gone to become a trusted partner, whether it is, product development processes or whether it is joint CSR activities or attacking some emerging, technology together and so on and so forth. So I think the whole idea of building superior customer experience is not to remain tactically a buyer-seller relationship. You're moving much further from it and developing it into a well-rounded partnering relationship that can help you in product expansion, that can help you in market expansion, that can obviously get you not just better share of his value, but you clearly know because of the strategic planning that the baseline is coming from here, so that the non-productive time that was earlier spent in knowing the customers, cold calls, contractual negotiations, lot of that is taken care. So the more critical time is spent on how we can win together. I think that's the way you create a success story, benchmark that success story, publicize that success story to the every possible forum, create awareness within organization that everybody, right from concept to commissioning Care for Life, contributed to making that success happen. And that actually, triggers other organizations, other business units to take up a similar task. And clearly you are rewarding high performance behaviors. So I think there's a lot you can do in the customer experience area. I think the constraints of this timelines of this program are probably not enough, but I think creating stories that can inspire the organization or your peer groups and create value for your organization, at the same time customer organization, is so very critical. And end of the day, everything that you do must be connected to a big picture that can help country progress, whether it is on our social commitments, environmental commitments, fulfilling economic growth commitments, maintaining jobs, keeping some evils, like the pandemic and all away. So I think there is a well-rounded perspective that you need to give.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ravindra. That's very important, and it's very well put from that perspective. Now let me quickly jump to Charu. I want to slightly make a statement here and then probably hear your reaction. Sometimes CX feedbacks are considered fluffy and not quantified. That's how people sometimes kind of term it. So how can you really influence action from different stakeholders and others, people who may be part of your team or maybe your partners? How do you really influence them with anecdotal statements or these feedbacks that you get?
Yeah, I think that's a problem, Rajesh, that probably everybody who's starting on a CX journey or are even in the middle of a CX journey, sometimes even in a very advanced journey you could face, depending on where you are in your place. But I think the best way to go about it is use your CX data. So there's a voice of customer, right, which basically tells you what are they thinking, what your customers are thinking, but also connect it with some of your internal metrics, which I call the voice of analytics, so to say, right? So, because those are more observable, right? You have somebody coming in your website, there are digital footprints that they leave. So you have some observable data that you get from the analytics. And then you move on to getting a customer perception of how that touch point went, right? You also have another observable parameter, which is what did customers do about it? And those could be in form of various actions, right? They could either buy more from you, or they could stay with you, or they could leave you because of different experiences. And then you kind of link it to some of the business outcomes, right? So I think the CX journey cannot be done alone. It has to be in partnership with all stakeholders in an organization. You have to look at your internal metrics. You have to look at whatever your customers are saying, what have been the drivers there, and really co-create that journey together with multiple stakeholders so as to see what is optimum, right? And more importantly, what is it that matters most to the customer? Because you can't really prioritize, as somebody said, right? You can't really prioritize everything in an organization. All of us have limited resources, limited time, limited effort that we can put in. What is it that really will matter to the customer? You work on those areas. And of course, they have to link to your business outcomes. So typically the way I go about it is I work with my stakeholders to make them understand the data that's coming from a CX program, but more importantly, understand how it is linking to some of the other KPIs, some of the other data that we are gathering in-house, right? And then help them link that to business outcomes, and then show them that if you don't do this, what can be the business impact, right? Your costs could go up, or something else could happen, or revenue could be lost. You could lose deals, or you could win deals. So I think that storytelling with all data could probably be an impactful way to show it.
Thanks, Charu, for that. And I think we need to conclude. So before that, I want to ask one quick question from Mohan, and then we will end. So Mohan, we have very limited time, but I cannot let you go without asking this question. And I saw a customer service heroes in Harman newsroom. And I had one question, and I want a quick response from you. How does a fully engaged employee, drive customer experience from your perspective, especially from Harman's perspective? So that's what I would like to hear.
So I think at Harman, the main focus is on experience delivery. Like you have seen, like you have rightly collected the data from all perspectives, that the focus is on experience delivery. The same applies as long as you empower the employees to deliver the best consumer experience or the customer experience that day. So every measurement metrics in the organization are based around one of the KPIs are definitely to look at what sort of customer delight or what sort of customer experience are we looking at to make a change from the industry or internal standpoint. So that way it becomes a key KPI for all of them to work towards making sure every consumer or every touch point the consumer comes to Harman has an already defined process to operate through. So that's how you see the we have something called the experience per mile. That's more of how we can deliver experiences per mile from automotive perspective, and from software perspective it's going to be experience per moment. So every moment that there is a touch point with a brand or a product, it's very important to enable that, because that's only few seconds of touch point we have.
Yeah, thank you so
Rajesh,
much.
allow me to add. Rajesh, sorry, I know 10 seconds. Allow me to add. I mean, we are an extremely sales-focused organization, but we believe that ultimately service is what is going to deliver sales. So right now, after this call, I'm going to join and do a President's Club felicitation for branches who have delivered only great service. And I don't have to do anything else, because I know these branches have done great business as well. So we do this measurement only for, and we call it as Axis Gold program. It is only for delivering great service. And that's how we felicitate them.
Thank you so much for that. Fantastic. So Kesha, over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. We really appreciate the way that you led this entire panel and allowed each one of the panelists at the end to kind of conclude in in their own way. So I really appreciate it. Please put your hands together for our moderator, Mr. C.B. Rajesh, each one of our panelists who are right here on screen and those who had to log out. And we've got our ritual going. When I say customer, I'm going to invite you to say FEST. Okay, so everybody unmute yourself, bring in your voice, your energy, and some hand actions if you want, whatever works for you. Okay, so everybody who's watching at home, you've got to join in as well. Join the panelists and our moderator. 3, 2, 1. Customer.
FEST.
Customer.
FEST.
Thank you so much. I love it. Everybody had, a beautiful energy that you brought in. Thank you very much. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of the evening. And please continue watching this journey with us. Thank you.
Thank you.